right, the pregnant pause. We are now live. Let me stand over here. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming out to the Poison Pen Bookstore. How many of you are new to our store, have never been in? Probably most of you. Hey, well, welcome. It's great to have you in. And I was delighted when Dorothy approached me to do this program tonight, or to host it. You know, we're mainly fiction, mystery, crime bookstore, and we're trying to expand what we do a bit. So it's poetry has always been a little outside of our wheelhouse, but maybe not anymore. So thanks so much for coming in. Let me give a nice introduction. Dorothy Chan is the author of 5 poetry collections, including Return of the Chinese Femme and Revenge of the Asian Woman. A finalist for the Theodore Roethke, right? Roethke, all right. Memorial Poetry Prize and the Lambda Literary Award in Bisexual Poetry. They are an associate professor of English at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and co-founder and editor-in-chief of Honey Literary Incorporated, a 501c3, what is it, BIPOC?
BIPOC, yes.
BIPOC, Literary Arts Organization. Chan was a 2022 recipient of the University of Wisconsin Systems Dr. P.B. Poorman Award for Outstanding Achievement on behalf of LGBTQ plus people. Visit their website at dorothypoetry.com. Richard Siken is a poet, painter, and filmmaker. His book Crush won the 2004 Yale Series of Younger Poets Prize, selected by Louise Gluck, a Lambda Literary Award, a Tom Gunn Award, was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. His other books are War of the Foxes, which came out from Copper Canyon Press in 2015. Excuse me. And I Do Know Some Things, forthcoming. Is that still going to be the title?
Yeah.
Right. Forthcoming this year from Copper Canyon Press. Siken is a recipient of a Pushcart Prize, 2 Lannan Fellowships, 2 Arizona Commission on the Arts grants, and a fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts. And one of his poems was recently published in The New Yorker. Very congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. He lives in Tucson. So please, let's give him a nice warm welcome this evening. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you so much, Patrick, and thank you so much to the Poison Pen Bookstore for hosting our event tonight. It is my honor to be reading and having a conversation with the one and only Richard Siken. I wanted to say that it's hard for me not to be emotional right now because Richard, as a poet and as a person, as a thinker, as a painter, as a comedian, means the world to me. Maybe I'll talk a little about how we first met. I believe it was 7 or 8 years ago when I had submitted my first full-length manuscript titled Attack of the 50-Foot Centerfold, which of course takes inspiration from B-movies. The word centerfold in the title actually was inspired by an experience I had in college because I was asked to pose for a girly calendar. And I thought, who better to send it off to than Richard Siken and Sport Press?
Yeah.
Fun little fact, with that book, there's a house, a McMansion, I should say, in the background. And that house looks like Zed's house, the DJ. And you know what's great about Zed's house? He has 3 Skittle machines. One for sour, one for regular, and one for tropical, my favorite. And the day that Richard wrote to me, I just froze. And it just meant, I don't know, it just meant the world because I think that within the community of poetry, you do have readers, but not every reader is the Richard Siken.
Well, Spork Press had been Spork Magazine for years and years, and we decided we would expand into chapbooks. And we did that for a while because it was easier to work with one author at a time rather than 20 authors at a time. And we felt that we wanted to, and we were able to, support writers even more, and we would go ahead and do first books. We didn't know people who were waiting to have manuscripts. Drew Burke and I were not affiliated with any university, so we didn't have students coming through. So we did an open call, and we had no idea the quality of the work we would get. And we were astounded with your manuscript. You said earlier that you see me as a mentor, but really, I didn't do anything except make you a cover and publish a book. So I don't even know what you're talking about.
I did send poems to Spork before I had sent you the manuscript. It was a few years before I had sent you the manuscript. And I don't know if you remember, but it was just maybe 5 persona poems. And you said the most helpful thing to me, and it really was just get out of your head.
Really?
You did, yes.
I don't remember.
You do, yeah, you did, and I'll find the email sometime. But you were just so generous with your time. And I think that early on, I was so inspired by Crush and the swerve of the line that is created.
We were really interested in voice-driven work, and your work is really voice-driven. And we were interested in the line, definitely. And, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, but all I know is that we don't really fight, and I love that, but yet it's this ongoing banter. So here's a question for the audience. We've talked about this already. Who here has seen Challengers? Okay, so how many of you are Team Art or Team Patrick? We figured this out before the reading because Richard thinks Art is cute and I think Patrick's cute, so that's why we're never going to fight, you know? That's just the perfect metaphor. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. See, I'm not stupid. I'm like,
No,
yeah, I'm
no,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
So I know
know.
that we're not going to fight. We don't have to like the same thing. And yes, I just said that they are things.
Let's read some poems.
Yeah, let's read some poems. Want to start?
Sure. I have a book coming out next year. It was delayed by 6 months, and I have changed the title a couple times, so it's good to ask if this is the title. And allegedly, this is the title until we make the cover and actually typeset it. It's called I Do Know Some Things. I had a stroke, a significant stroke, in 2019, and I forgot everything. And so after a few months of struggling to get back my language, I started a notebook and I made a glossary. I wrote down a word to see what I knew about it. And the glossary got longer and my health got better, and my recovery is really amazing, and I'm really thankful for that. But the words at the beginning were simple, like meat and floor and bed, and then they got longer, like agriculture and metamodernism. And I ended up with 77 entries, which turned into this book. So the poems I'm going to read tonight are moments that I could remember as I was piecing myself back together. And I have revised them since I first wrote them, so they're a little more full and lush. But they really were the 77 moments that define me. And this is one of them. It's called Real Estate. My mother married a man who divorced her for money. Phyllis, he would say, if you don't stop buying jewelry, I will have to divorce you to keep us out of the poorhouse. When he said this, she would stub out a cigarette, mutter motherfucker under her breath. Eventually, he was forced to divorce her. Then he died. Then she did. The man was not my father. My father was buried down the road in a box his other sons selected. The ashes of his third wife in a brass urn that he will hold in the crook of his arm forever. At the reception, after the funeral, I got mean on 4 cups of lime sherbet punch. When the man who was not my father divorced my mother, I stopped being related to him. These things are complicated, says the Talmud. When he died, I couldn't prove it. I couldn't get a death certificate. These things are complicated, says the health department. Their names remain on the deed to the house. It isn't haunted. It's owned by ghosts. When I die, I will come in fast and low. I will stick the landing. There will be no confusion. The dead will make room for me.
Thank you, Richard. I'm also going to read a poem about family and birth as well. And just, you might already be picking up on this, but we were talking before the reading, and we think that a healthy mixture of all kinds of emotions is what's going to happen tonight, all right? So there's going to be moments where we laugh, there's going to be moments when we cry, there's going to be moments where it's something in between that I can't define.
I'm not going to cry.
I might.
I don't do that. I'm going to make you cry.
Are you going to make me cry? Yeah, you're going to make, so
I'm
that's
gonna make
that's
you
where the crying is
Yes,
coming from.
And that's only because I said let's do the funny ones.
I know,
And
but
you
I'll
said-
make you laugh.
Yes, you will.
Yes, exactly, and I did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why can't we do the funny ones?
I know, I know.
No,
Okay.
We have to do all the emotions. All of them.
the emotions.
All right,
Okay.
do an emotion.
All right, here's one about pregnancy. Lots of emotions. The pregnancy of a fish, actually, so let's clarify that. This is titled Triple Sonnets for Dragons Spitting Out Pearls. And the backstory behind this triple sonnet is I'm not really close to many members of my family. However, my mother is close to her sisters who live in Hong Kong. And my parents are actually going to be visiting Hong Kong very soon. They try to go every year. I am not necessarily very close with this aunt, but I do admire her. And she is a Buddhist, and part of her Buddhist lifestyle is being a vegetarian. She does this very beautiful thing every year. So in Kowloon, which is the part of Hong Kong where my mother's side of the family lives, there's lots of these restaurants with fish tanks at the very front. And so you can kind of see like the fish. Sometimes there's, of course, like crab, lobster, all kinds of seafood. And it's very customary for patrons at those restaurants to pick out a fish, right, when they enter and say, oh, I would like the steam for my entire party. And that's very common with family meals. Going back to my aunt, what she does once a year, and she saves up money for this, she stops by multiple restaurants in Kowloon with those fish tanks, or at those fish tanks, and she'll point to numerous fish. But she's not going to be eating at the restaurant. She buys the fish, and then she takes them with her, and she releases them back into the ocean. Wow. So this one is for her and about her. Triple sonnet for dragons spitting out pearls. My best friend's fish is pregnant again, and I think about my aunt in Hong Kong who releases fish back into the ocean once a year, buying them from restaurants boasting their seafood in tanks. Feng shui, because if your restaurant's got one arowana translated from Chinese as the dragonfish spits out the pearl, it'll do fine. But with two, pearls and pearls and pearls will rain down your meals, getting caught in oysters and abalone and lobster. And isn't seafood so beautiful in this greatest music video of all time, starring your arowana? Oh, arowana, you dime piece of a fish, let me write odes for you. How you inspire black market bad boys and girls and calling us supervillains. It's time to unite. Don those eye patches, because the arowana can be trained like a cat or a dog by your side, even though it's caged in a tank. It's a dragon, a damn dragon that'll let you take over the world, breathing fire, spitting out pearls. And my aunt stares at tanks of seafood in Kowloon, and of course, she can't afford an arowana, a 6-digit cost display inside like a Manet painting on a gilded gold plane, so she buys regular fish citizens, releasing them back into the water, giving new meaning to spa days of fish eating away at your dead skin. The Buddhist lifestyle of giving back, and oh, How I wish my best friend's goldfish was pregnant with an arowana. Maybe mommy goldfish could first grow 50 times its size. A superhero giving birth to a supervillain. And yes, I know it's impossible, but just imagine those pearls and pearls and pearls raining down on enough meals to feed everyone in Hong Kong, in the world. And I think about all the little boys and girls staring at tanks outside of restaurants, trying to grab onto a lobster tail. The adventure. Give me some pearls and fire.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we both bring the fire in different ways. Maybe the steam.
I have a poem about Red Lobster. That's about the closest I've got
Really?
to that.
Oh my
So I wanna
God.
jump right in. to
Yes.
that, and then we can talk. Maybe we can talk.
About Red Lobster and what you order there?
Well, see, Red Lobster is pretty much the opposite of that. Red Lobster is so corporate and bland, and the reason I like Red Lobster is because it's a good place to ruin. If you have to have an event or a conversation, it's a really great place to have it if you never want to go back there again.
And then you can eat all the Cheddar Bay biscuits.
Do they have that?
They
I
do.
haven't been in a long time.
Oh my God. So on season 1 of Flavor of Love,
Uh-oh.
Flava Flav takes his date to Red Lobster.
Really?
Yes.
Can't
It's
remember
great.
what this-
She's like so excited, and he's like telling her he's taking her to his favorite restaurant, and then they arrive, and it's Red Lobster, and she's really sad.
That's mean.
I know, it's really mean, but that's his favorite restaurant. What can you do? He didn't lie.
Albondigas. I was getting better at this point, so I went ahead and had a bigger word. Albondigas. My parents took me to Red Lobster to tell me they were getting a divorce. Parents always take you to Red Lobster when they need to tell you something awful and important, like failure. They figure if they're going to ruin a restaurant for you, it should be somewhere lame, like Red Lobster or the Olive Garden. We went to Red Lobster. They couldn't bring themselves to say anything. I was confused. My brother, visiting, offered to tell me. He told me. I didn't take it well. To calm me down, he tried to read McCavity the Mystery Cat to me while I was throwing things. He ruined it. We were supposed to ruin Red Lobster. I tried to break a toy school bus that he had given me, but it was too well made and solid wood, so I gave up. It's not that I don't want to be your mom. It's that I don't want to be anyone's mom. You can call me Phyllis, and we can work on being friends when I get back. My father hired a housekeeper. She wasn't a good cook, but she made a lot of Mexican food, which I liked. The first time she made albondigas, my father thought it was matzo ball soup made by a crazy person. He accused her of being a crazy person. He raised his voice and gripped the edge of the table to keep his hands down. So that was ruined for me as well. She should have left, but she didn't. She stuck around until my future stepmother entered the competition for the slot in the kitchen and won. They took me to Red Lobster to tell me they were getting married. I had popcorn shrimp and nodded along. My mother sent me a postcard with a picture of the Eiffel Tower, telling me how great things were. It had domestic postage.
That final swerve, it had domestic wow.
What do you like about the swerve? What are you drawn to about the swerve?
It's really filmic. I think it's really filmic, so I like to compare poetry lines to camera angles. So that can work with photography, it can work with film. And so with the swerve, I think about that sharpness in films that have flashback, flash forward. You can feel a sharpness, you can feel a swerve. Some of them are softer than others, though.
I always think of it as torque.
Yeah.
I think of it as spinning against the way you drive and building that tension so that the poem is going in more than one direction at the same time.
So multiple voltas in one.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, because it's like the idea where I think the mistake a lot of beginners, people who are reading poetry for the first time, say is, I love poetry. This poem can be about anything. But that's also incorrect, because you can't just assign something or a meaning or a content to a poem that doesn't have that. But I would like to say, though, that a good poem can make you feel that swerve, can make you feel that torque of a three-pronged approach towards emotions.
We both love the line. We both invent with the line. And really the line is the only thing that poetry has that no other art form has. The line takes the sentence and breaks its meaning and makes two meanings or three meanings. And the meanings happen simultaneously. And so a poem is about something, but it's also not about something. It's about how it tells and what it tells. But it gets slippery, and I like the slipperiness of it.
I like that too. And going back to film, I also like the slipperiness of how a lot of film endings can be interpreted multiple ways as well. Or you think about a show like The Sopranos and how it ends with the black screen. And it's been debated and debated for, 10,000 years. Does he die? Does he not? Yeah.
How do you like to end your poems? I like to mix it up, but I'm really fond of ending on an image.
I like
rather
that.
than ending on a declaration.
Image over declaration always, because I don't want to tell somebody how to feel. And it's like the idea that Mary Ruefle says in Madness, Wreck, and Honey about how a poem has three possible endings. I believe the endings can be an ending in silence, an ending which is the last word, so that could also be a declaration, or an ending that executes a pirouette, does a turn. So we're also infusing dance within poetry as well.
I like declarations on the front end. You
Yeah.
set it up, you make it seem like you know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
and then you drop it and you just go crazy.
I think so too, because I've never been one of those tightly wound poets who's like, my
You're
poem.
tightly wound.
Really?
I think you
Oh
might
my
be tightly
God.
wound.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Me too.
I know. But I don't want to be one of those tightly wound poets that knows where a poem starts and how it ends.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's like the idea where you can have a declaration to start and you can obviously declare it and have a lot of feeling. But in the process of writing, you shouldn't allow yourself to find new discovery.
Can you read a swerve poem?
I think so.
Okay,
So
cool.
I can read a poem about Dennis Rodman. He did many swerves in his
Yeah, that'd
career,
be great.
both on the court and off. Yeah. This is all I know about sports.
I think that might be an understatement, but I
Oh,
don't know.
thank you. So I grew up watching Dennis Rodman, and when I was really young, I knew I was queer, but I didn't have the words for it. And I read something in him on the court and off. I miss seeing him in tabloids. I miss seeing his hair color change on the court. It was a wild time. Triple sonnet for Dennis Rodman, number 91 on my television screen. Oh, and the R in this poem, the person I address is my good friend, Rosebud Ben-Oni. I love her. Triple sonnet for Dennis Rodman, number 91 on my television screen. I tell R that McDonald's has sold out of the special $6 celebrity wrapper meal, and it's a moment straight out of my 90s childhood when Michael Jordan had his own burger, the McJordan, with smoked bacon, cheese, and barbecue sauce. And don't forget the onions. And don't you wish your beloved would call you nicknames like McGorgeous or McLovely or at least McPretty? And I wonder if names like that are reserved for run-of-the-mill white guy doctors / actors on TV shows past their prime. All I know is I'm mad my meal is sold out. All I know is Dennis Rodman was my favorite Bulls player as a kid, and how I remember his green hair on the court. Or what about when he dyed it yellow with leopard spots, or the time it was a smiley face in the back, and he really was a performer, a dancer. And who could forget when he declared he was going to marry himself, showing up to Barnes and Noble of all places in a wedding dress, and a parade of biphoning behind him. Cheers to you, Dennis, and thank you for giving me a childhood. January 2nd, 1998, when you hit 3 3-pointers in a row, give me a triple-triple. At fast food joints, everyone asks for the double-double, but why ask for 2 when you could have 3? And we all know thrice is even nicer, like how Spumoni ice cream isn't complete without cherry, and Neapolitan isn't anything without strawberry. And have you tried the astronaut version that's one hard block? But who wants to try when it could be wet is the rhetorical question for every context. Give me a triple espresso with a triple decker Dagwood with olive on top. And oh, Dagwood, you lucky fool. How did you ever score a babe like Blondie? Count your blessings. Give me a juicy pickle from the largest glass jar. Appetizer, entree, dessert. The rule of 3 applies to meals the most. Or I'll take a triple topping pizza, anchovies, sausages, and olives. Throw in a soda to wash it all down. 3 wishes.
That is some magnificent swerve.
Thank you. And you know, the 3 wishes at the end makes me think about that one annoying kid in class, you know, like whenever the teacher's like, what do you want to wish for? You have 1 wish and one kid's all like, oh, I would wish for 10 billion more wishes. That person has no imagination.
No, they really don't.
No, so that's who I think about at the end, but you know, the poem's also kind of a dig at being boring. Your smile's the best.
You've stumped me.
Did I stump
You've
you?
stumped me.
Okay, so how do you feel about pop culture in poems? Because we're kind of working with a lot of references today, I'd say. We've got the Red Lobster.
I'm doing it now because my new poems are autobiographical and I actually live in the world.
Yeah.
So I can't avoid it. But for the longest time I did avoid it. I wanted to go mythic. And I wanted to go eternal. And so I used tiny words. I thought I would concentrate on the concepts and try to say them as the difficult, complicated concepts, but try and say them as simply as I could. Which is not what I read, which is funny, because I like complicated sentences.
Yeah.
I like really thick language, really high lyric language.
Yeah.
But I think we like what we can't do, and that might be part of it.
I think that's great because I think that as writers, we should always be open to reading things that we can't do or we don't want to do. And you're absolutely right because we live in the world and we can't avoid it. So, of course, these references, no matter how big or small, no matter how corporate or how artistic, are going to pop up. And I think that itself, like, it's interesting because you just admitted that, you know, this new book is autobiographical.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and so that itself becomes the swerve in the poem because if we start out, let's say, with the declarative, with the small words, the declarative in small words, and then we're swerving, right, into like a scene at Red Lobster from childhood. We're swerving into the specificity of the bus toy.
I got a good one for you with swerve.
Yeah.
It's really hard to tell a true story and have swerve in it. Because the true story has got to follow certain rules.
Yep.
It's got to have a beginning, middle, end. It's got to be followable.
Yeah.
Or does it? I think this one's followable, but this one really surprised me. It kind of scared me, and I knew it was going to scare me given the first line. But this goes in such strange places. This is what I know about family therapy. It was sort of a list, and now it's a story. It's a better story than a list. But yeah, this is what I know about family therapy. I'm going to make you cry. You ready to
Really?
cry? Or should I
Okay.
make you cry on this one or the next
No,
one?
it's fine. Like I'm ready. Don't worry, I'm ready. I think I look great when I cry, so we're fine.
You do look
I
great
do.
when
I
you
do look
cry.
great when I cry, so it's always
Yeah.
a win, and it's gonna moisturize my skin. So just
Yeah.
keep going. Just keep going.
Okay. The morning after my father killed his first wife, he woke up next to her dead body, rose from their bed, and began his morning routine. At lunch, from his office, he called the landlord and asked him to check on her. He was worried, he said. The night before, he had taken her pill bottles and lined them up on the bathroom counter. He said unkind things, using words like burden and ruin. He stood in the doorway and wouldn't let her pass until the bottles were empty. They went to bed. He said good night. She said goodbye. They turned their backs to each other under the thick blankets. This is what he said, my father, in family therapy, a few months before he died. I had already figured it out, mostly. The other son had always been more tender, gullible, and it was his mother, not mine, so you can see how it would be easier for me to get my head around it. They watched each other, trying to figure who was getting their head around it. The therapist watched my father. My father watched the other son. The other son turned away and looked out the window, where the wind was pushing some leaves around. I confess, I feel bad for the landlord. He must have known. The body had been dead all night. I imagine him with this heavy ring of keys, unlocking all the doors to all the rooms he's been responsible for, year after year, until he's no longer surprised by the residue. Empty bottles in a mirrored cabinet, a wedding ring at the edge of the sink. Did I make you cry?
I was following the landlord, and I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the turn that I really like, because how was I going to end that?
Because it goes back to the idea when you're saying just now that a true story, to be factual from moments in one's life, especially hard moments, is very hard to tell in a poem.
Yeah.
And I guess this is not a way out, but it is a volt, it is a swerve out, it is a point of view change within the film when we then follow the landlord, because we weren't expecting that.
Yeah, my brother said stuff, and the thing went on, and then we got in the car, and then we drove to a place.
Yeah.
But none of that seemed important. And really, I was thinking about the landlord, and I was like, well, go ahead and put that in. If that's really what you're following, that'll be the interesting thing.
Because it leads us, the audience following the landlord leads us to the ring. And that becomes symbolic. We don't have to end on a declarative. We can just end on this is the final image. But what's also interesting about the landlord's swerve, change in point of view, is the fact that right before that, we have the description of the two sons, how one of the sons was more tender. And I find the doubling fascinating because it takes us back to many moments in Crush when we have doubleness as well. So crush as in heart, having a crush on someone, which is harmless and somebody makes you all giddy, but crush is also violent as well. And so we are also seeing this duality. So as the reader, as the watcher, as the audience now, especially hearing the poem live, it doesn't matter to me which brother is the tender one, because within the world of the poem, which is based in real life in this case, as was just mentioned, we are following a moment of tenderness where we're like, we're going to let go and we're going to follow the landlord, but we're going to then follow into that symbol of the ring.
You write in sonnets. Mm-hmm. And sonnet traditionally has one volta.
Yep.
It has one swerve.
It's not enough.
How'd you realize that?
Well, do you know my poetry mother, Lyrae Van Cleef Stefanen?
No.
See, one day I dreamed that all of us are going to meet somewhere and we're going to take a photo.
Well, that sounds
Well,
great.
we're going to do stuff besides taking the photo. But
photos
yeah,
are-
yeah, but the photos and then we can all go home. You can, after
Right.
like 5, but no, it
Well-
takes a million tries to get all the people into a photo.
We'll just eat at home alone
Yeah.
after the photo. It'll be really great.
We'll just, you know.
Hang the photo up on the wall and remember how great it was.
Exactly. So, in undergrad, so at Cornell, Lyrae taught us about the sonnet. And I remember one of the first lessons she taught us about the sonnet. I mean, obviously you do the basics of, you know, like 14 lines, iambic pentameter, what is a volta? But the best lesson she taught us was she showed this video of these two gorgeous dancers dancing around each other in a box or cage-like structure. And it was a very, very sensuous dance. But of course, the two dancers never kiss, they never touch each other, they just get very close. And I remember how when we were we watched the video a couple of times, which was good because she said upon the second time of watching the video that we should focus on how many times the two dancers breathe. And then she compared each breath to the line. In everyday language, we tend to say about 10 syllables before we breathe, before we pause. Some people, of course, can fit more syllables in. But I remember that, and then she asked us, she said, oh, do you feel the tension and release? And so I've always looked at the sonnet as a box of tension and release, but in order for true tension and release to happen, you have to have more than one volta because you're asking the reader, you're asking the speaker, you're asking yourself to pause. So there has to be multiple points of realization caged into a very tiny bite-sized structure. And I think that's why I gravitate towards the form.
You want to read some sonnets?
Yes.
We
So
should check the time.
yeah, it's 7.
got time.
Oh, we got time. I'm gonna read a poem on my phone.
Okay.
I know. How do you feel about
I
that?
told you not to.
I know. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm really not that sorry because I
Can
want to
you
read
really
this.
hold the mic and read on your phone?
We'll see. I might drop it. Who knows? I'm gonna have to call Apple Care. I don't know. Oh no, I know. It's so hard.
You do you, babe.
So I'm going to read a sonnet, and this is titled Somehow. And this is for, well, this person would have been in the photo. So this is for Norman Doobie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
he used to live around here. So Norman Doobie was, I'm going to say is, because for me, I believe that when people pass, they don't leave us forever. They go to another plane. And so there's this Chinese belief that I always hold on to. It's displayed in the poem. I think I'll just read the poem first. Somehow, for Norman. You visit me in a dream after passing, after I've been awaiting you for weeks, because Chinese belief teaches us our loved ones will appear when we're asleep. It's real. When I enter the hotel restaurant in the middle of nowhere town I live in, as the Midwest architecture transforms into Kowloon at evening time. We eat bird's nest soup, and I remember the time my father ordered me this 400-year-old delicacy at Hong Kong airport. Out comes the Peking duck, and I ask you, why did it take you so long? You answer, I arrived once you were strong and ready.
Wow.
That did happen, and I had been awaiting him for many weeks. And I remember that it's so vivid because this was a dream, but of course this was such a vivid dream that I held on to it because sometimes, you know, when we dream, we wake up and we're like, wow, I had a good dream, or I'm really happy, I'm elated, I'm aroused, or I endured something hard. But for this one, I felt every moment of it. So I was able to write it down. And I believe, so Norman basically, in another plane, came to visit me in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where I live. And he's like, okay, we should go to the hotel you always eat at. You know, like that's all you ever do in that town besides teach and write. So we go to that hotel. But of course, you know, Norman doesn't want to eat new American food. He's always wanted to like eat Chinese food with me, Japanese food. And so in the dream, or I guess I shouldn't say in the dream, on this other plane that I entered with Norman Doobie, we end up eating all these Chinese delicacies. And the architecture transforms because he's always wanted to go to Tokyo with me. He's always wanted to go to Kowloon with me. I remember when he was alive, during the MFA, every Thursday we'd get food. I guess it was our little secret. I was frustrated during the MFA. I had great mentors, but I wasn't necessarily vibing with my classmates. But Norman just helped me through so much, and we'd get Indian food, we'd get Thai food. I can go into almost any restaurant and know exactly what he'd order.
Oh, that's awesome.
I miss him so much, but it was such a special connection, and I think that one of the many endearing things about him is his voice till the very end was always very youthful. If you just heard him on the phone, didn't know who you were talking to, you think you were talking to somebody in like their 20s or like early 30s. He was just so youthful.
I think I have time for one more poem if we're going to open it up to questions. I guess we'll go with food, right? Should I go with... Well, I'm not going to ask you.
Okay. Go with what feels right.
So Phyllis is my mom. She's the one that says, motherfucker. And she's the one that says, it's not that I don't want to be your mom.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the mom that she had? That would be my grandma. Beet soup. My grandmother slams her hand against the kitchen counter. The egg drips gold and glossy down the front of the cabinet drawers. She has come to live with us as she recovers from her stroke. Her speech is slurred and her movements are jerky. I wipe egg off the cabinet with a paper towel, but I am not tall enough to reach the counter. I put the eggs away and we have cereal for breakfast. I pour the milk. After breakfast, she starts dinner, borscht, which seems like a bad choice. It is not a put a chicken in a pot kind of soup. We will need to do a lot of chopping, and we don't trust each other with the knives. I stand on a chair and chop the vegetables very carefully, under her uneasy supervision. A beet is a serious thing. It sleeps in the ground while the apple trees thrash all night in the wind's red darkness. Sometimes we use turnips. In the old country, we used what they threw at us. They didn't throw anything at her. I don't buy it, but I like the sentiment. A pragmatic idealism that would come to inform my future meta-modernist sensibility. I ask her where the old country was. Some days it was Russia, other days it was Poland. The flags changed, the rest stayed the same. I put the vegetables in a bowl. I want to found a city, not reconstruct one. Houses so new, there are no mice in the walls. It's a poverty of imagination, the fear of improvisation, the insistence on undamaged goods. I add the vegetables to the broth, she adds the pepper and the dill, and together we stir the bright-built world.
The fear of improvisation, the bright-built world, and the egg. I recently had one of my students at Eau Claire is going to be entering an MFA very soon, so in a few months. And he wrote this gorgeous Ars Poetica about an egg dripping. And so I'm like picturing a visualization of the egg as that representation in your poem. But then we travel through, I guess, countries which shift.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The family dynamic.
She was trying to teach me how to make eggs. I was trying to crack the egg and I was being too gentle.
Yeah.
She's like, no, this is how you do it. And she meant to crack it on the side of the pan. And she just, because stroke, she just slammed her hand against the, this is how you do it. So that's how I learned how to make eggs. Kept making eggs just by slamming them on the counter for a couple of years. Didn't really work. A lot of cereal for breakfast.
Oh, so yeah, you always have to dig out the shells.
I still have to dig out
I have
the
to dig out the
shells.
shells. I've just told all these people that. They're gonna think I'm really incompetent.
Should we ask them if they have questions?
We should.
Okay, do
We
you have
should.
questions? They don't have any questions.
I know.
That's so weird.
I know. How do
Okay,
they not have questions?
You ask them and give them your mic if they have a question.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? First of all, round of applause for Richard Siken.
And Dorothy Chan.
This mic is already on, so we're happy to keep talking and answer any questions. Is there anything on anyone's mind? It's like a talk show. Oh my God. Oh, hello.
Hi, I was wondering if you could both talk about your influences, poetry or otherwise, and what you read them for.
I'll start.
Okay.
I like to compare myself to the greatest writers who ever lived, so I realized that I suck and I should quit. I like to get really upset so that I sort of panic and maybe froth at the mouth a little bit and pace and look at my dog for help and she ignores me. But I was told to quit doing that. So what I do instead is I read poems I hate. I read authors I hate. I read non-fiction. I read all sorts of stuff that just rubs me the wrong way because that's when I really know I have something to say and a way to say it. I also like Gertrude Stein. But yeah, read what you hate. It's liberating.
You know what I love? Picasso's portrait of Gertrude
I
Stein.
know, isn't that great?
I love
I wrote a
that.
poem about that.
Oh my God, because that's
did.
like such an anomaly within his body of work,
I
too.
know, but it became such a thing.
Oh, snap, yeah.
If you don't know, Picasso painted a picture of Gertrude Stein and it didn't look like her. It looked kind of like her, but it didn't look like her. And she said, "It doesn't look like me." And he said, "It will." And by that he meant she would fade and the painting wouldn't. And we would see the painting and think that's what Gertrude Stein was.
Yeah. What kind of dog do you have?
Okay, no, about your influences.
I know, but I want to know what kind of dog you have. I'm
She's-
going to forget
she's
to ask you
not-
later.
She's not a golden.
I wasn't waiting.
You were, yes, she's not. She looks like a golden.
Okay.
She's a hoverwort.
Okay.
Hoverward. She's a trash dragon. She's just this thing that my housemates found in a parking lot. I don't even know. She's not even my dog. She's my housemate's dog's. It's just, but she sleeps in my room because I give her cauliflower at night.
Oh, you give her cauliflower? That's so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's like roasted
Don't
cauliflower.
tell them.
I won't. I know, but we just told all these people on
These
live
people
stream.
no one's gonna watch this. on
I
the
know,
live
it's
stream.
fine. Like,
Not
it's
in my house.
I know, yeah, it's fine,
They're
it's
so
fine.
tired of me.
So I'm really influenced by film. So one of my favorite films is Audrey Hepburn's Two for the Road with Albert Finney. And I love that film because it basically follows this couple. There's a lot of mod fashion in it. And like it follows this couple through like their entire relationship. But what I'm attracted to the most isn't the romance. It's actually the back and forth in time, the flashback, the flash forward. And I think that films like that attract me because within writing, within poetry, there's always the challenge of the line. And so we're thinking about how do you tell a cohesive story through the line? But of course, that story does not have to be told in a linear fashion. In fact, it can be much more compelling in a non-linear fashion as well. I'd also say that most of my influences, of course, are artistic. There's a period during my undergrad years where I really loved writing ekphrastic pieces. I was a docent at the museum at Cornell. And so, I don't know, like I like to start with what's visual because the thing about it is a film, not that filmmaking is easy, but a film there's this luxury where you're literally following this moving picture. So you can, if you're able to see, you can see everything that's happening. But in order, though, for a poem to be good, you have to help the reader be able to see every single line, every single scene, every single moment. And so I think I am most attracted to poetry because it really is challenging. Hi, question right here.
Yeah, you're the busy one. How do you do it?
I note take every day, but in terms of like the schedule, teaching a 3-3 at a teaching institution is a lot of work, and so when there's a break like a winter break, especially a summer break, I put myself on a very strict, regimented poem a day schedule, where I have to complete a poem a day.
That's crazy.
That's how I wrote I forget which, but one of my books in like 3 months because I was doing a poem a day schedule.
And you have 5 books
5, yeah.
over a span of how
I'm
long?
34, so.
But you didn't start writing till you were like 12 or something, right? So what's the time frame for 5 books?
Yeah. I don't, I was first published when I was 14, but then I kind of like abandoned poetry for a little while because when you're in like middle school and high school, if you're an artistically inclined kid, they don't really give you resources.
But your first book came out 8 years ago?
I'm trying to remember.
And you have 5 books?
My chapbook came out in 2017. So yes, about 8 years ago, and I have 5, including that. It's because of the strict schedule where I'm very much a strike while the iron is hot writer, so I keep lots of notes on my phone. Like I have hundreds and hundreds and thousands of notes on the app. And I just like to, just start with a line. It can be something funny I overheard. It can be like a line of movie dialogue that inspires me. It can just be like a beautiful moment that I want to like relive, such as in the Norman poem. And so with the strict poem a day schedule, the poem itself is not going to be perfect on the first day, but I try my best to get it at least 70% done, meaning the plot, the basic structure, the main ideas are all right there, and it's a cohesive poem that if I showed it to someone, I wouldn't be embarrassed. But then the next day is for that 30% to happen, meaning the edits, and it gets easier as time goes on, but then I also have to write another poem about 70% there.
For a year, I tried this project where I wrote 10 lines a day, every day. And all I was trying to do was capture one image, one metaphor, one moment. If I got story, that was a win. If I got anything, it was a win. But I only wanted one thing. There's no way I could make a whole poem. I publish a book every 10 years. And, so far I've only published 100 pages. And I don't work. You work. I don't work right now, so I just write whenever I want to. I say I write every day, but I don't. I play with the dog a lot. I watch Hulu, and I feed the dog under the table, and but we're in my room, so it doesn't matter. I can just feed her. Just figured that out. But yeah, I just write when I want to, so I'm really, really lucky. But I also have a deadline, and so I would have to make time for that. I would have to get a residency or take time off to complete a book. Is a really, really difficult, serious thing. And this book is so sad. It's terribly sad. I read the funny ones. Oh, my dad killed his first wife. No, I wrote when I stroked out and hit the sidewalk. I write how I went to the hospital and they said, "You're not having a stroke," and they sent me home. Like it gets really awful. And there's some that are voiced in crazy voice with not being able to handle language. Whatever it is you do first thing in the morning is pretty much what you want to do, and you should honor that. And when you're working on your serious thing and you're stuck, so you work on your side thing, you should honor that. My second book happened because I thought I was writing a different serious book, and I'd just get frustrated, so I'd go have fun over here. And when you want to have fun, you make time for it. And it turned into the real book, with the fun over here. I say all you need to do if you want to be a writer, all you need is a lottery pencil and the back of an overdue bill. You really don't need that much, and you don't need that much time, I think. All right, this is awful. This is really awful. I'm sorry, but people say you have to give 100%. You don't. You don't have to give 100%. Unless you're in a relationship, then you each have to give 100%. You can't get away with 50% each. But when it comes to everything else,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I can't do that. No.
Well, you have to do that.
I know. Yeah. Thank you.
So all you have to do is do like 3 to 7% a day, because no one's doing any percent. They're all saying they're gonna do percent, but they end up not doing it. If you spend 7% of your day writing or painting or whatever your art is, 7% of your day thinking about it. If you think about it while you're doing the dishes, and then have 7 minutes where you're actually doing it, you'll have a body of work.
That's so real.
You're so real.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question right here?
I was just curious, like in both of your respective like writing processes, in the work that you both like favorite the most, do you find that you were more like the poem controlled you more, or you controlled?
Oh wow, that's a really good question.
It
It's a really smart one. I'm stalling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
stalling. Yeah.
Well, you could be.
No, I'm happy. It's great. It's great. Ask more.
You could be flip.
I could.
No, you've got to answer
No,
authentically.
I have to. Yeah.
All right, we're stalling.
Yeah,
we're
because
trying
we're
to
just like
change.
stalling.
What was the question
It was
again?
about what. So in the work that we gravitate towards, just correct me if I'm wrong. Are we in control of it? Like, are we taking the reins? Or are we like letting go? Is that the gist of the question? Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Because see, I want to
This
let
is
go.
about the
So I want to
line.
let go. Yeah,
This is
yeah.
about the line. Okay, so language is like water. It wants to seek its own level, and it's gonna do its thing. So as a poet, what you can hope to do is build dams, aqueducts, water wheels, and nudge it here and nudge it there. You slow it down by throwing in some semicolons and some dashes, or you speed it up by using tiny little words and hasten it along. End stop line, drag you down. Enjambment, speed you up. Indent, speed you up. And the thinking is like that too. The thinking on spools, and it's gonna go where it's gonna go. The thinking seeks its own level, and even if you think you have something to say, you have something else to say, and you're gonna betray yourself. And all you can hope to do is nudge it. Just nudge it here and nudge it there. If you can relax and get out of your own way, you end up with spectacular things. The more you force it, the more stilted it gets. You may be able to have a brilliant, polished thing, but it can be kind of dead.
I also love a poem in second person with a continuous you, and I find those very challenging to workshop in my own classes because I think it's both, right? As the reader, when we enter a poem that has a lot of the you, we feel like, oh, wow, I get to choose my own adventure. I get to be in control. But I think the best moment within, yes, the swerve is when we actually have to let go. And I think that itself is pretty much like a mind trick from the writer. And I think that that's what I gravitate towards, that because I'm like, oh, wow, I am a player within the poem, but I also at probably the midway point, the 30% point, I probably have to surrender some sort of control in order to feel out the rest of it.
It's so interesting because I do it the other way. I surrender for the 70%, and then when it comes to the last 30%, I'm like, all right, we got to make some rules.
Yeah.
We got to clean this up.
I feel
all
that.
you intentions, get in line. I need all your arrows pointing the same way.
I'm feeling that right
supports-
now.
Craft supports intent.
Yeah.
Get in line.
Yeah, see, I'm feeling that in this answer because you took control of the
Yeah,
70%
yeah.
part of this answer. We just made a poem from your question. Are we, let's see, can we do, I guess
Check
we
the
can
phones.
do, yeah, it's 8. We can do one more, or we could just, I don't know, does anyone have a question? Anyone else? Okay, in the back. Yeah. So just to clarify, the poem a day is not every day. It's only for about 4 months in the year. I'll do a poem a day. But in terms of the image's origins, I think I always just go back to like, I think about a painting or a movie scene I'm most attracted to, and I feel like, okay, we're characters within this moment. I love when poems have characters, when we actually name people, and maybe those are moments of tenderness. Sometimes we don't give them actual like full names, but we might give them their initials or like one letter. And I think that that's where the image really starts to branch out from, but it can't just be a mere description, right? Because it's not a Wikipedia page. It's supposed to give us many emotions at once. We're supposed to go through this entire journey of the poem and build from that initial image. So if we are looking, let's say, at a painting, at a Monet in a museum, when we see the painting up close, it's different than far away. And I believe that a poem should also do that as well, the zooming in and the zooming out.
After I did my 10 lines a day for a year, I did 1 photograph a day for a year. And I realized I hadn't been looking at things, I'd just been assuming things. And so I was forced to find something worth looking at. And it was so hard. It was so hard some days. It was just so hard in general. And then, after a month, you're like, well, that's a strange collection. And after 6 months, you're like, who am I? I got caught up in taking pictures of the lines in parking lots and just trying to capture the abstractness of how they overlapped and how the tar had patched over. I was really looking at texture, and I didn't realize that was a thing to look at. I looked at fruit a lot, and I played with light a lot. I looked at light a lot, and what it bounced off of. So, image comes from looking around and being curious. And later I tried to see if I had something to say about it, and I realized that was stretching it a little bit too far, and that the project was just about practice for looking. But I'm absolutely sure that spending a year looking at stuff changed everything. I'm sure it did somehow.
Thanks everyone for those questions. And thank you again, Richard.
Thank you so much. This was great.
This was so great.
Yeah.
And we get to sign books now.
Yay.
Yay. Okay.
Right. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. And would you guys like to stay here, or would you like to sit over here? What's more comfy?
That would be better for
Okay.
arm, yeah.
If you guys wouldn't mind just folding up your chairs and putting them against the closest wall, usually that side works the best. Thank you so much.
We are so funny.
We are so great.
Yeah.
It's like we have our own show. We had our own show for an hour.
Yeah.
We could be giving out advice. People should have been like, I'm having issues with my boyfriend. We could have helped them.
Be like, write in forms.
I know.
Yeah.
Right? Rivalry's so good.
Not in a bad
Right,
way.
informed. Give more to the relationship.
100%. Did you bring your favorite pen for signing, or do you not play that way?
I don't really have a favorite pen. I do have a pen. Do you have a favorite pen?
Of course I do. I have drawers. I have a drawer of fountain pens. It matches your purse.
Oh, it does.
You did that on purpose.
Oh my god. You look such an amateur. You have this like gorgeous little pen, and I have this thing.
That's a watch.
Yeah, yeah.
So nice. I've been singing it to your songs. Great job, Dorothy. Good to see you.